Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Um, we have a little had a little break in our weather. It's been a very sort of quiet um, period of weather here, especially across the southeast and the mid south, the Ohio Valley regions. It hasn't been too active. A few thunderstorms here and there, but nothing out of the normal, nothing crazy. It's been fairly quiet, but I do think that changes. Especially tomorrow, but it has sort of changed today. We do have a sort of batch of rain going through the Ohio Valley, some of which have some stronger storms kind of mixed in. So, yeah, it will sort of change through tomorrow. I think tomorrow we have a better chance for severe weather across the Ohio Valley and the mid South area. But let's sort of just dive in real quick into that. This won't be too long of a video. I'm just going to sort of briefly go over just the main ingredients I have seen. Um, I sort of just talk about the potential threats. This is the day two convective outlook. Um, we can see that sort of just broad marginal risk really from Dallas all the way up through the Ohio Valley, Charleston, West Virginia, Parkersburg, West Virginia, up to there. Um, Hail threat seems to be more centralized in the mid South, maybe the lower Ohio Valley, but I think in the mid South and sort of into the plains here, we'll have the greater chances for hail. Our wind threat certainly looks better across the Ohio Valley, and especially sort of on this northern, I think on this um, sort of northern part, but also this eastern section here. Um, Louisville, sort of Charleston, Pikeville, and that sort of general area. I think that's going to be, um, just from what I've seen, maybe the best area for some damaging winds. But again, it's so isolated of a threat that um, a lot of things could sort of um, lower that threat. So 5% risk exists across the Ohio Valley. Um, not expecting many people to have real strong winds. And interesting here. We do have this tornado threat again through the Ohio Valley. It's very isolated. However, just with the location of this trough and the turning of the winds, which we'll discuss, certainly seems possible, especially with the cape as well that will be in place. Certainly seems possible that a quick spin up could happen. So. We'll go into that into a bit more detail, but definitely something to sort of keep an eye on. Again, that's that marginal risk for tomorrow. And just real quick, I kind of just want to discuss the just the radar right now, currents. And we'll have these showers sort of move out in the next few hours across the Ohio Valley, and might have some isolated storms pop up in the afternoon and evening, but nothing really too severe. So here is sort of our synoptic um, upper level setup here. We do have this deep trough here, really um, powerful sort of low pressure here above our Great Lakes and Canada. And we can see our trough here. Um, this is sort of this is yesterday here, last night. This is a older run. The This morning's run is just not in time, so we're gonna have to use a little older data here. Unfortunately, don't necessarily like doing that, but yeah, this morning here, um, we can see the sort of that trough sort of start digging down here, and we can see a lot of energy sort of being injected toward the base of that trough from Canada. Um, and this is what's going to be the main sort of player for our severe weather tomorrow. Um, so this is around 10, 11 o'clock today. This is what the upper level 500 millibar winds will should look like, and you can see that sort of piece of energy being injected in the northern plains as we move on throughout the day. Um, it's now well into our northern plains area, going into the Midwest as we move on into the morning tomorrow. We can see really nice jet streak here, and at the base of our trough where our severe weather will be with the greatest moisture. Um, we can definitely see that the very base of the trough sort of enter into that severe risk area. And interesting enough, as we sort of progress this, and I wish we had a longer view here because the real severe weather won't really start until probably 6 or 7 o'clock Eastern time, and that might be a little too early. But that's when it should start popping up, these storms. And if we look real closely here, if we pay attention to sort of our Kansas, Oklahoma region, and I do want to just sort of mention this, we can see a little tropical sort of system out here near Baja, California. And that's going to be injecting moisture, additional moisture into the base of this trough. And we can see this if we look closely at Kansas, Oklahoma. We can see this sort of happen here, and we can see this energy start to streamline in toward the base of this trough. And by tomorrow morning, and we have another sort of secondary piece of energy on the base of this main low pressure in Canada. This will be streamlining more energy and moisture to the mid south through the Ohio Valley. This will be sort of the main. This will give that extra sort of boost in the possible severe weather. But I hope that made sense. I hope that sort of made a sense. Not the best at explaining things, but um, this additional moisture and energy here. This is from a sort of tropical wave, tropical depression here now at this point. Um, this will sort of streamline in through the like four corners and then the mid plains, Midwest area, and will kind of form this secondary little jet streak here across the St. Louis, Springfield, Missouri by evening time tomorrow. And this will be moving eastward as the night progresses. So this is the HRRR here. This is newer data. This is the href ensemble. This has many different sort of model runs combining together. This is just one single model run. So let's just sort of see what HRRR has here, and we can see this energy here in Baja California, tropical sort of depression, tropical wave, and that energy will be. You can kind of see it here. This is tomorrow morning. And you can see that energy sort of just dispersing across northern Mexico and into the southern plains here into Texas. As we move on throughout the evening tomorrow, um, we see this energy start to really um, influence the base of this trough, giving it some extra juice as you will. And then when these storms are really kicking off by about 10 or 11 o'clock Eastern time, across the Ohio Valley. 500 millibar winds are easily between 35 and sort of 45 knots. Definitely sufficient enough for especially damaging winds. But that, in terms of that, that looks fairly well good. So let's look at our NAM model here. Just sort of get a few extra. Yeah, we want to sort of look. NAM, of course, is a little bit more bullish on that tropical sort of depression down there, tropical storm. But we can sort of we can see that energy start to streamline in southern plains here And by tomorrow morning, tomorrow afternoon, you can really start to see it amplify on the base of this trough. Um, and this will be again the main cause, and we can see by evening time um, across the mid south, the Ohio Valley, 40 to 50 knot winds, mid south closer to 30 knots. Um, but with the overall idea is this amplifying sort of energy from that tropical storm will be the main cause of the sort of severe weather tomorrow. Um, well, definitely the cause of the increased severe weather. There may have been a chance for severe weather even without this sort of extra moisture. But and then by later in the night, yeah, that moves off eastward into the Ohio Valley. So we understand now up in our atmosphere what's sort of happening just roughly. We do have a nice setup here. We have a nice increase of additional moisture from our southwest. Next, I do want to um, sort of just look at our temperature real quick for Friday. And we can see this is Friday around 4 p.m. here, and we can see some 80s to 85-degree temperatures. We're gonna have enough daytime heating for these thunderstorms to possibly um, really kick off here. Let's look at our dew points. Again, this is the href ensemble mean, so there are many different model runs are going into this, um, spitting out a just general idea here. And we can see dew points in the Ohio Valley, Mid-South, easily up through the 60, 70-degree range. So moisture is going to be there. Our temperatures are going to be high enough from our daytime heating. And yeah, let's go ahead and look at our, might as well, we look at our surface-based cape here, look at our mean. Um, this is again around 4 or 5 p.m. This is around 4 or 5 p.m. Eastern time. A lot more instability down through the mid south. So with the lesser sort of mid level, upper level winds, it will be made up for with increased instability, probably up to 2 to 3,000 joules per kilogram. But up through the Ohio Valley, it sort of lessens quite a bit, where 1,500, 1,000 to 1,500 seems some pockets of 2,000 seem possible, but I think we'll have some higher values across the Ohio Valley. But definitely a pretty interesting setup here. So let's look at our HRRR surface-based cape here, and I'm gonna sort of zoom it in here for you guys. So yeah, this is tomorrow. This is around uh, 3 to 4 p.m. Central Eastern Time here. It's around 4 p.m. actually, 4 p.m. Sorry. And but we can see these pockets of 2,000 joules per kilogram through the Ohio Valley coal fields and even across parts of the mid South here. Um, but definitely we do have that sort of heightened region across Kentucky, eastern Kentucky here, and that sort of moves in into western West Virginia and southern Ohio by 7, 8, 9 o'clock. So instability tomorrow is definitely a check mark. We have our upper level winds, and let's just sort of real quick. Let's look at our bulk shear. This is going to tell us um, kind of it helps us tell us the storm mode and different types of possible threats. And with here we go. So with by evening, bulk shear not really too impressive, but across north of the mid south here and far western portions of the Ohio Valley, we can see um, this bulk shear really start to move eastward, and we'll see this here as we move on throughout the night. Again, most of the storms should be firing by now across sort of eastern Ohio, central Kentucky, western Kentucky, uh, or eastern Kentucky, excuse me, and then western West Virginia, which we'll look at that real soon. But we can see pockets of our bulk shear easily above 35 knots, so 40, 40, 50 knots even is possible, bulk shear. And we can kind of really see that as the threat moves eastwards here. But that does definitely tells us sort of a damaging wind threat is possible um, with these impressive bulk shear values. This is a 0 to 6 kilometer. Um, so this takes the surface up through 6 kilometers up in our atmosphere. So again, that is something to sort of keep an eye on, especially as new data rolls in. Let's look at our NAM just real quick. The NAM is always a bit bullish on the instability. We've sort of have discussed that before. That's not the right one. And we're gonna probably see that here. Yeah, we can clearly see that here. By Friday evening, tomorrow evening, we can see pockets of 3,000 joules per kilogram across the Ohio Valley coal fields here. Um, don't think it'll be that high, but I wouldn't be shocked to see maybe a few places of 2,500 joules per kilogram in our Ohio Valley region. But again, it's not. I don't think it'll be this crazy. And then look at the bulk shear from the NAM 3K. And this is sort of Friday, afternoon and evening. It's a little bit more bullish, 30 knots before the main sort of bulk or the main sort of chunk of shear here. But as we move on throughout the evening, these storms are starting to fire up. They're going to be firing up in sort of 40 to 50 knot uh, winds. So again, sort of tells me that a damaging wind threat seems likely here. Let's finally look at our radar here. Let's finally look at our radar. This is the HRRR model. This is from this morning, and again, we can see those like isolated scattered thunderstorms that pop up after this bulk of rain this morning. Nothing crazy, maybe a strong wind gust, especially in the coal fields, but nothing to be concerned about. Um, as we move on, we should have enough sunlight. We should be having minimal clouds. We should have daylight heating for most of the day tomorrow, which will just further sort of fuel um, these storms in the evening. But yeah, by about 7, 8 o'clock Eastern time, we can see some of these storms start to pop up here. And if I take a sounding, let's just say, let's back it up a little bit here. I don't want anything to, let's do around Huntington here. Um, and we can see one thing I instantly noticed is our surface to 3K lapse rate here is pretty high, 9.2 degrees Celsius per kilometer. That is fairly impressive. That sort of tells me also we will have maybe even some a hail threat. It seems possible. Our precipitable water is definitely low, which does support that sort of hail threats. But I don't think the hail would be really large. It would be sort of small, dime size, maybe penny size. But we can see here. Um, we can see our cape here. Cloud top should be over 12 kilometers. Cape is pretty skinny. According to the HFR here on Huntington, this is around 5 p.m., 6 p.m. Eastern time before the storms really start to kick off. Um, Cape is sufficient enough. Third Cape is very low, and we can see our shear value is not the best either. But remember, the bulk of our shear has not made it to our region yet at this point. Um, but yeah, some isolated thunderstorms, and really starts to develop into more scattered, widespread activity by 7 or 8, 9 p.m. in that sort of time frame. Let's take a sort of a sounding in the coal fields here. This is around 9 p.m., 10 p.m. Um, just back it up an hour here. Yeah, we do have the Cape there. Elapse rate's not as um, great, but I think daylight heating, the lack of daylight heating is sort of the reason for that. But again, we do see some turning in our winds. Actually, we can see that sort of clockwise sort of motion here from our surface. We can rotate this, and it's pretty much due easterly at our 3 kilometer um, winds from our west 3 kilometers. So we see that clockwise turn. Um, Speeds are decent, nothing crazy. We can see our storm relative velocity values fairly high there, which is spitting out this sort of marginal tornado risk. Our hydrograph definitely sort of points out that right clockwise turn from our surface to our 2 kilometer region there with that two. We can see is that little sort of sickle shape there. Um, it's not really impressive, but we do see that right there. Another sounding sort of up through the Ohio Valley here, contaminated, so probably we'll have to back up. And yeah, we can see sort of that turning in the winds there. Let me just do this. This might be a bit easier to see here. This is around when the storms will be sort of firing, so around 9, 10 p.m. here, and we can see um, winds from our west here um, blowing at the base of that trough across the Ohio Valley, especially across the central Kentucky, northern Kentucky, much of Kentucky really. And if we compare this to our near surface winds, 850 millibar, not quite near the surface, but close. Um, we can see these winds a lot more out of our sort of southwest. The long end of these wind barbs point to the direction the wind is coming from. So our 500 millibars were straight from the west to the east. Now we have some of that turning southwest to northeast. So um, kind of just briefly see it there. Yeah, it's not going to be a real significant, not going to be a real significant event. I'm going to actually show the rainfall, this total rainfall here through Saturday morning, but it's not going to be a, real significant event, but definitely something to keep an eye on. I think a damaging wind gust up to 60 mile per hour is possible. Small hail, even though the hail risk isn't up to the Ohio Valley, wouldn't be shocked to see a small hail event to maybe dime penny size. Nothing too crazy hail wise, and then wouldn't be shocked to see see a spin up or two, mainly across northern and central Kentucky. I think that's going to be the main sort of tornado, and National Weather Service doing an amazing job as always, sort of pinpointing that. But I think that your best risk will be Louisville, Lexington, sort of even maybe Portsmouth, Ohio, so southern Ohio there. Maybe this in this general area here. Um, Probably see the greater risk, but anywhere in this 2% needs to be weather aware for a possible spin up. Um, I do think they may upgrade this risk to a slight risk. I think it's very possible that they do that. Where I'm not exactly sure, but I'd imagine probably sort of Eastern Kentucky, Central Kentucky, maybe down to the Mid South some. So um, keeping an eye on this. We'll make another video tomorrow. if anything really changes. But again, just a 60 mile per hour wind gust seems likely, and then some small hail across the Ohio Valley. Again, not everyone's going to see a strong storm, but in those stronger storms, that is very possible. But if you have any questions, let me know, and I will be back with another video shortly.